What is this?
Greetings, I'm Shad.
And greetings, I am Tyrant.
And Tyrant, what are we doing here?
We're planning a sword.
Yes, because you might have seen, we recently made a carbon fiber blade.
This one here.
With really, surprising results, honestly.
But we've got more to test. We've got to make a sword now. This is just our machete/knife, but we are doing a sword.
We want to advance, upgrade, continue on this journey to see what we can do next. Because we do want to make a giant sword, but before we get to the giant sword, we need to make, well, a kind of more regular sized sword, but it's not actually going to be regular, because I have some very interesting thoughts in regards to the design of this sword. We learned a lot from the carbon fiber blade video, this baby right here. And already, as a result, I want to modify the design on the sword to account for some of the information that we got. And one of the more interesting bits of information for me, and I was a bit surprised about this, but in retrospect, it shouldn't be surprising because it's so thin. The blade that we attached to the carbon fiber right here, this is 0.5 mil thick.
Oh yeah,
steel.
it's very, very
very thin. And as a result, we were able to cut right through it. And
that surprised you? I'm surprised that surprised you, to be honest. It's not hard to cut through something like that.
Well, I'm wondering if the steel was properly tempered as well.
It would be harder, but it would still be the same sort of results. Like it's just very thin. It's literally 1 millimeter thick. I don't know what that is in our freedom units.
0.5 mil thick.
Oh, is that one half?
This is 0.5 mil thick.
0.5 mil thick. That is very, very thin.
The steel edge is important on this because that's where most of its, I guess, edge holding capacity.
That's where the magic happens.
And exactly, that's where the cutting is and everything. The carbon fiber is to give it the rigidity, the size, and length. More importantly, the length it has while still keeping it strong and structural and functional as a sword, whereas the blade is all steel. And so I'm thinking for the sword, because with the sword having more mass and then now clashing with other swords, we will test it with steel. There might be a chance, I think it would be unlikely, because we smashed this as hard as we could onto another steel sword, and we were getting these deep gouges, but it didn't have the mass to actually go deeper.
We're designing the sword today. We need to design a long. You want a long sword? A long sword. But I've been thinking about, because obviously all this is really important for the Titan Sword project, and there are things that we may be changing with the Titan Sword design, because we're getting all the feedback now, so we can apply it later.
So I have a design for the long sword.
I haven't seen it. I have not seen it.
Tyrant has not seen this, and so we're going to show it, and we're also going to brainstorm things, because there are options that I haven't decided on, and one of the options is actually making this steel thing thicker. I'm thinking we really should upgrade this to 1 mil thick instead of 0.5 mil thick.
I'm fine with that.
My concern for that, though, is that that's technically doubling one of the heavier parts on the blade.
Yes, if it's 1 millimeter thick, it's not going to change too much. So one of the important things with the build video, check that out if you haven't already, was getting our thickness. And this here is 9 layers thick. So we can actually make this a little bit thicker or a little bit thinner, depending on what type of steel we use. So using 1 millimeter, it's not going to change that much.
Let me show you the design and the options, and then we can brainstorm. So we're going to jump over to SketchUp, and are you ready, Tyler? So this is the design.
It's basic. It's just a basic sword
It's going to be basic. We want it to be basic, but functional, okay? And there's actually a lot of intention behind the design here.
Tell me about this crossguard.
So the crossguard is actually really, really basic and simple. We could go aluminium, but I'm worried it'll be too weak then. Okay. And so if we grab the green sword here, right, this is an incredibly thin crossguard.
Yep.
The reason why it's able to withstand so much thing is this is good quality steel. This is carbon hardened steel, and you can feel it.
Yes, but I wouldn't trust this crossguard with my hands. This is a very, very thin crossguard, and when you're hitting proper...
See, I would. I'm more than confident in trusting this. Most sword strikes will rarely ever cause a crossguard to bend. It's when you get like a big clump of wood and really push it over its stress limit, they will bend. Most crossguards will. And I think you could even force this one to break, but you would have to really throw it in hard to do that. I think even if we just did this out of mild steel, it would be durable enough for most sword uses.
I'm not liking this here. In terms of structural integrity for attachment method for the crossguard, it's pointless. Okay. It actually is taking away strength. So instead of having this sort of profile, it would have more of a, so come straight into the transition. We have the crossguard like that. and then it'll be a nice sweep.
That's going to be an awful, uncomfortable grip. You're wanting something like coming in like this, going out, and to get to the width of the blade, which will be about there, because the width of the blade is like this.
If the blade comes down a bit like, we just want it a bit like that. And then the cross guard actually takes up this little bit here. You have your little holes there, just like that. So you won't actually see too much of the transition. And then when you put on things like a leather wrap or whatever else you got, it'll be much more like this. Basically, you hide it in the cross guard.
Yeah, you're basically wanting the cross guard to sit here to hide that transition.
Yes, but I would make the transition a little bit more gradual.
So you're wanting something like this.
Yes.
And then you want the cross guard.
So then we'll take out these little...
Yeah. And then you want the cross guard to sit like that.
Yes.
That is an awful handle.
It'll sit a bit lower.
Out here?
Yeah.
Okay, you might have a point, because technically the stress would be the same here as it would be here, for one difference.
You have a handle. You have a handle on it.
Holding, because you would have the handle have a rivet here and down here, which would add additional structural strength to this stress point. And for that, I agree.
Okay, good. The tip of the Titan sword is going to be something like this. Like, it's going to be this much carbon fiber to this much edge. That is going to be mostly steel.
That's, I think, what we're going to find by nature of it. The sword. It's a sword. It has a more narrow tip no matter what.
I much prefer this sort of gradual tip. It's a very, you start at a big thick base. Obviously you want it to be a bit thinner, sure. In terms of tip to, like, if we go to here, right? You got a lot more blade. This is a very aggressive angle all the way up.
So you think something like that?
Yep.
Beefy boy.
I'm digging that. I am digging that. That I like. I think that there's more useful information we can garner from that.
All right, so putting those on the blade here, the blades aren't meeting at the tip.
I would want to put a steel-tipped insert. So there'll be a piece of steel right at the end that'll be inserted right at the tip. So the tip will be sort of its own thing. Well,
then, if you were doing that, I would cut off both these at probably this mark right here and have a full steel insert. Like, we're going to need a separate bit of carbon steel for that then.
That's the easiest stuff. What we've got to talk about is I'm not going to say fuller, because I wouldn't really be a fuller. It's more going to be a raised section, is something going the length of the blade to add rigidity. Because when it comes to the Titan sword, we are going to have a center spine. It's not going to go up the whole length of the blade, but it is going to go up at least like this much. So I think this is the perfect time to test something that can go from the tang to, let's say, just before the midpoint of the blade.
I wouldn't even say midpoint. I'd say maximum 1/3. Because as soon as you put something, like, one of the advantages of this, we want it to be its thinness.
Right.
And because carbon fiber can retain a lot of rigidity while still being quite thin.
Right.
And so as soon as we start to make the center point thicker, we're losing that advantage of it even being carbon fiber.
It doesn't need to be super thick or anything like that, just something thin that can go from the bottom of the tang, ideally holding on the pommel, because that will be a similar construction method of the Titan sword. I was thinking of getting a thin piece of aluminum, bending it around, putting a little rivet in that, flattening that as much as possible, and then that going all the way up the central spine to about, let's say you want it about there. So
aluminum.
Yeah. Has flex in it, just like carbon fiber, but it's also lightweight. So it'll be a good test for it, I think. We've got our thin bit of aluminum here.
This is what, all right, this is the thing, right? This is more flexible and has less rigidity than carbon fiber of the same thickness.
Yes.
We would be better off adding a carbon fiber rod like this onto it than aluminum. It would add more rigidity and even be lighter.
Like, for example, using the carbon fiber offcuts to add a ridge around there, that's fine, that makes sense. But when it comes to something like adding on a pommel or something like that, and we need something softer.
Unless we use the pommel that has the screw attached to it, and then we add the cutout and then have it like so. We add a cutout on the carbon fiber like so, and then we drill out a hole for the two scales of the handle, and then we can rivet right through it on either end. That's a solid attachment. So these are the pommel options for the longsword.
Or a custom one.
I think that's perfect.
I think it's a bit small.
I think it's perfect. Look, aesthetically, I wouldn't mind it being a little bigger, but in terms of functionally and weight-wise, this is perfect. Oh, look, that one looks even better.
This one does look even better. It's quite heavy though.
We can cut it off.
Yeah, we'll cut this off. Okay, so this one I think could be a solid option. We only have one though, so we'd have to get
We'll buy another one.
Yeah. How thick did you want the tang?
I would actually like to find one with a thinner one, because this is about as thick as I want the handle.
Ooh, whoa, what?
Yeah, I want the handle nice and thin, baby.
That's very thin.
Again, taking advantage of the carbon fiber. Usually, like swords, by their function and design, I guess I could go to this thick, yeah.
Like, there gets a point where things are too thin. Like, this feels too thin to me to use. I don't like it.
This is almost similar. This is actually similar width looking at the tang.
Yeah, but there's not going to be any material left to actually attach it to.
Well, that's why. If we just get one with a thinner screw attachment.
I think this handle is a good thickness.
It's a good baseline. I would not want to go any thicker than that. And in preference, I would probably want it even a bit thinner. That means then we can have the ridge reinforcement carbon fiber. It doesn't need to be used to attach the pommel.
Okay, we can use a carbon fiber ridge. That is fine.
And I would, like I said, only want to come up about this far with it.
Yeah, that's
Adds
fine.
additional reinforcement. That means the sword will flex where it needs to flex most, which is towards here. We don't want flexing down here, which is why it's thicker on average. We know what we'll do with the tip.
Now, Shad, we come to the most important part of this discussion. The part now, if we're going to be doing sophisticated edge like this, the attachment method of the edge. Now, this method works. It didn't fail us.
Well, I think it threw off our edge alignment a lot by the single bevel.
It did, but if we're going to thicken it up a bit, then we can add a bit more aggressive bevel on one side.
No, I really think we need to centralize that blade. We have a flat sheet here. When we're making it, we literally just put the blades, so now this is the actual blades, right? We actually put the blades in like this, and so it's gonna have its own separate point, right? And then we just do equal amounts on either side without needing to do an infill in between, and the sandwiching will force the infill in between the blades as is already. And we just sandwich it all together, mark it out on the top, and then when we cut it out around, and don't touch the blade, but we actually cut around the blades, and then we can grind it closer to get the exact shape.
Forcing the carbon fiber into this infill won't be as strong as all the other carbon fiber. It's just...
It worked there.
That's different. There's no cavities in that. What it's doing is basically...
Well, you're right, because this is now 1 mil thick, not half a mil thick, and so there's more cavity to fill down.
So technically speaking, it is far more compressed at the edge than at the tip.
Which is actually a good thing for performance.
It is a good thing. However, when it comes to this sort of method, we're going to have like a soft spot right in the middle of the blade, but not in the good sort of soft spot, because it's going to be mostly resin.
It won't actually all be resin if we just tried to squish it. Pretend this is a cross-section of the blade, okay? Yep. So if we can see this is a cross-section of the blade, and we have both sides coming in to squish it, right?
Yep.
I'm actually gonna need to go full cross-section. So see this little mark here? Yep. That's this here. That's the cross-section of the blade. We're looking at it here. And so
that's the edge of the blade where you'd sharpen it. So
this is the tip right here.
Yes.
See the tip? And so we have the carbon fiber coming in. When we squish it, even though there's going to be resin here, the carbon fiber will be squished in like this on either side. And these two lips will give enough support. It will still be being supported by carbon fiber here, even if there is some resin on the inside, because of the squishing effect.
Yes, but I'm worried about the resin being here behind the blade.
If we squish it like crazy, because it'll be so tight, this carbon fiber it's going to be literally braced on the blade. And so as we squish, it has no other option but to fall in right where we want it to be. That seems to be the easiest method.
Okay.
I think
But if it doesn't work,
we'll try it again.
Okay.
Right, this is why we need your support, guys, because this could go catastrophically wrong, and then we'll need to rebuy materials to go again. And this stuff isn't cheap.
Oh no, carbon fiber is actually very, very expensive.
So any support that you're willing to offer is tremendous. Just $1 to $5. And if you do it on Subscribestar, Player, channel memberships, or Patreon, all of those are available. you will definitely help us out. And by the way, everyone who is supporting us, thank you so much.
This video was basically a video that we had to have anyway. Like,
yeah, we needed to discuss this.
Whether the camera was on or not, we needed to actually talk about these things because we actually need to. We're going to be making a start at some point when the weather allows it. We have just enough material to maybe got to measure it because I'm not actually sure how much we have, but we should have enough for one at minimum.
Look, this, like I said, really necessary, and we came to some very good agreements about the design of it, and I can redesign this to make it look the way that we think you want. And Tyrant's right here about the more gradual kind of thing and the reinforcement of the handle in particular. As to the construction method, well, we just need to see and find out.
Yeah.
The first look, and this is on me, if it fails, it's on me, but I want to try and gamble just sandwiching the thing in one and then combining with the rivets. I think it'll hold in place and be stronger as a result.
We can try. Like, it's not actually, there's not that too much more involved than if I was to do it this method. It's just this method I know has like a 99% chance of succeeding. This method has a very high chance that we're going to have imperfections behind the blade, which is what worries me, because when we strike it on something, there's pins in there, sure, but those pins transfer that energy straight into the carbon fiber. And if behind the blade, there's nothing but like gaps, it's a problem.
I am going to gamble that it will stay within tolerance allowance.
Well, you heard him here,
We'll
folks.
find out. We'll find out. But I have a sixth sense about these things, Tyrant.
We'll have to wait and see.
If it's on me, it's on me. I'll take it. And I'll graciously admit I was wrong and we'll start again.
Now, to be honest, guys, this is probably going to be the last update video for a while, because we've got things like weather, we've got things like materials. We are working on these things in the background. We didn't really say much about this, and then we had all the videos come out. Same sort of thing with this.
Might be at least a couple of months away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if not longer, but we have the plan. We're going to be moving forward to do this, and your support enables us to do it, because we also might need to save up a bit of money if we need more materials.
We also have the behind the scenes content, which will probably get regular-ish updates when we work on it. So if you want to head over there to any one of the platforms where we've got Utreon or Player these days, where we do post these sorts of updates. We have a whole bunch of behind the scenes videos. You can check all of them out. And if you want regular updates, because whenever we work on it, you best believe we're going to be filming it.
I'm excited.
I am tired.
And it's going to be a journey. Thank you for joining us, guys. Hope you will stick with us throughout it all, and hope to see you on the next video. So until then, farewell.